Hi, the following podcast is brought to you by Radical Road Brewery, the best craft beer in the heart of Leslieville. Find them at 1177 Queen Street East. That's Radical Road Brewery.
Hi, my name is Amai Kuda. I am the lead singer of the musical movement Amai Kuda et les Bois, and I'm here to speak about our new project, Emergency. Welcome to the music.
Welcome.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you join us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Me.
Yeah. So a quick question that I had right off the top. You're obviously a musician and artist, but you're also known around the community as an organizer, as a community organizer. I'm curious, what came first, and how does one sort of feed the other?
That's a very good question, and not necessarily that easy to answer. But I mean, as a child, I was always into music. I, wanted to be oh my goodness, sorry about that. I wanted to be a musician and visual artist. I'm just going to put my phone on airplane mode. I'm sorry about that. And then I was also very, very passionate about social issues and animal rights. And so that was part of my childhood. And then by the time I got into university, that sort of passion, as you know, universities are a great sort of feeding ground for connecting to other passionate young people. And so I co-founded a bunch of different community organizations that are usually mostly focused on decolonization, supporting local Indigenous people, creating conversations between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people, as well as working on decolonization work for people of African descent. And I really felt at that time, I guess my zealous kind of carried me away, and I felt like, there was no time in life to do superfluous things like the arts, because for myself, that would have been an indulgence. I need to just focus on like all these problems in the world. And then I think I kind of had a bit of a spiritual awakening that happened after I left university and had my son, where I was kind of called back to it, where my the ancestors, the guides who I work with, told me to sing. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the best way to make change in the world. And I think that's really, I do see that as the two things are inseparable. I see music, the way it's made a difference historically. And I feel very strongly that the work that we create is part of that. And that sometimes you're shifting things more through, you can tell people, you can sort of talk at people or tell people like, this is what you should think, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. But sometimes that doesn't work. We can't always think our way into being a better society. Sometimes we have to feel our way into it. And I think music and the arts is one of the most powerful ways to do that.
I must say though, congrats on the album.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we gave it a listen this past weekend, and it actually shocked me. Because when I got the album, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't know what sort of music is on this. Sometimes you can take a look at an album and you can say, I remember decades ago seeing the album Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf in my cousin's house. And I looked at that album and I go, man, that's some devil music in that album. Because it's like a beast riding a motorcycle, and there's fire, and it just looks like it's coming out of hell. And
yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, my big cousin's really into some heavy, heavy music. And then you listen to Meatloaf, and it's like, it's melodic.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at your album, and I go, I can't guess. I have no clue what I'm gonna hear. And then I started listening to it, and I sort of did a double take, and I go, this is amazing stuff. There was I think one of the first song or the first couple of songs, there's some hip hop influence in it that I sort of got out of it. I go, this is there's a mix. It's very eclectic. And it was just amazing to sit down and listen to. So congrats on that. And thanks for making a great album.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Like I can feel the genuineness in what you're saying. It's really cool to sort of get people's reactions to it. You never really know, as an artist, what, we hope that people are going to enjoy it and also, enjoy the ride and feel that the music is not too all over the place. So it's really cool to hear that you enjoyed that eclecticness, because like I love all different types of music, so I don't like it just doesn't work myself into one box. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that, and I wouldn't want to listen to a playlist that's just like one type of music. So yeah.
I know you started working, or I think it would be amazing to be able to play with your son. You're playing with your son in the band, right? And part of the group. How did, not necessarily for this album, but even the sort of the progression of the music, how did that influence, like working with your child? I mean, I got goosebumps thinking about that. How did that influence the sound and the feel and the message?
That's interesting. Like speaking to the sort of history of that, at the beginning, my very first album in 2011, it's just like sort of sampling his voice there. And if you listen to it, you can sort of hear him there as I think 5-year-old or something. And it's just cute, you're putting your kid on. And then, he's growing up in a musical family. Both my family and his father's were separated, but he's also a musician. So he's just surrounded by music. And so, yeah, it's a part of him, and it was just natural for him to be playing music with us. And again, like for me, I'm not very, I don't lean towards like categories, like there's a fluidity in how I see life and how I try to do things. And so, yeah, my son is part of my life. As a musician, you work from home. So it's just like, it's all just living, and he's there, he's a part of it. And then with this project, like, all the time, it's in the past, it was more him sort of being there and being part of what I was doing, our music and our sound. But now he's a teenager and he's got his own thing, right? Like he's into some metal, which I'm not so much into, but, but he's also, he's into an array of sounds, and he's getting into production. So he's teaching himself to produce. He's taught himself to play keys as well. And so I thought, I'll give him a chance. Let him see what he can do on this for some of this production for this project. Like I used to, for my very first project, I did some production, but then I decided I wanted to shift away, like wanting to spend less time with computers. So it's like I do still do some, but I didn't want to sort of invest my time in becoming a producer. And really mastering the equipment in that way. I wanted to focus on other aspects. And so it's just been this really cool thing as he's sort of developed that passion. And then we can sort of collaborate together as he has these really awesome ideas. Again, he's into hip hop, he's into rock. And so Which Way was like a perfect sort of fusion of the things that he's into and I'm into. And that was one of the ones we did together, as well as Listen Child, which it's like he was just messing around on the keyboard and I just came and started singing, and being able to just to jam with your kid, with your family. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. So what you're saying, Amai, is that your next album is going to be a rock album? Is that
a metal album?
A metal.
It's really funny that you said that. He was literally trying to play a bunch of metal songs. He's like, would you cover this? Could you cover this, Mom? I was like, oh my God, Kuda, please. But it might, he's working on it. So now you put your vote for that, and we'll see. It might happen.
All right, there we go. I look forward to that. We'll have to get your son on the podcast soon, and
absolutely,
and talk about that. Was there pressure to have your son become involved in music, or was that something that happened after spending time with you and his dad?
Definitely not pressure. I mean, I do believe, it's just like any we do put some, I guess it is a kind of pressure. We do, we want our kids to do well in whatever they're doing, whether it's music or sports or whatever. So once he expressed interest and showed talent in it, there's definitely, I think, a kind of balance that we have to strike in terms of like pushing him to practice at times to sort of have that discipline, because now he's also taking up the guitar, and I'm like, okay, make sure you're still, you're still working the piano, you're still working the mbira, which is the other instrument he plays. And I think that's the kind of role of a parent, is to help with guidance and help to encourage the discipline that they need, because it does take discipline. Music it's not just about fun, right? So for instance, this recent gig, he wanted to do the gig, and then he kind of tried to back out in the last minute. I was like, dude, you were getting paid as a professional, so you need to, like, you would kind of be sabotaging yourself in the music industry if you just kind of pull out of things like that. So I did push him. So there is moments when, I have to be mom and be like, no, that's not how it's done. But mostly, especially with this project, like, it's very much he's into it, and like he was right there with me, like wanting, like we had late nights at the studio till like 1 a.m. and he was like, you know, all about it. So it's actually more fun when it's less about like, you know, you should do this, you should practice your piano. It's more just like he's really down for the
awesome.
the project. Yeah,
that's really cool. The first single off of the album, I'm going to try to pronounce this. Is it Écoute? Écoute.
It sounds like French, but it's not French.
What does it mean, and what language is it in?
That's also a complex, a good question, but a complex question to answer. So I am also a Sangoma, which means healer in Southern Africa. It's a word used in like Zimbabwe and South Africa and other Southern African countries. And so through that work, I do work with ancestors, and so there's literally part of our tradition involves channeling ancestral spirits. And so the language that comes through in songs like Ekuche and parts of Eshu and Oshun and Mother's Home is actually a language of ancestral invocation. So it's like a chant prayer language.
Chant, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about this. I don't know if I call it a song or not, but tell me about the single and why that was your first, why that was the first single that was released from the album.
I mean, it was done first, so that's part of it. Like I wrote it, I sort of had recorded it first, but also I did feel it was a good way to start and a good way to introduce to the project because, again, it really speaks to the essence of what this project is about, which is very much about connection to spirit and to spirit and to the earth, praying and wanting something better for the earth in terms of like healing and more care for the planet. So that's all part of the meaning. It's a prayer for the healing of the waters, and so yeah, it's all part of the meaning of the song and speaks to the themes that are throughout the album. And I think it's interesting. Yeah, for me, it's still one of the songs that it's very. It still feels very healing. Like sometimes as a musician, as an artist, like you kind of like, I'm sure you guys might have experience like this with things that are your passions. Like sometimes when something becomes work or once you've practiced it so many times, it can kind of lose its thrill for you. But that's one of the songs that for me, it's still very healing to sing it. It's still very enjoyable and soothing to sing it. So yeah, I'm very happy that was the one. It's not always one that, it doesn't necessarily speak to all audiences because some audiences, at least for instance, like on Spotify, there's not like lots of playlists for music in other languages, for example. So it's not as easy to push that song, but at the same time, for me, it's actually one of the ones that's sort of closer to my heart.
Sure. Speaking of Spotify, let's sort of take it in that direction. Do you take a look at the dozen or so songs off of the album and say, okay, these ones, let's push on Spotify? Like how does that game work for you in your music?
It's interesting that you asked again, like that's something I've only recently, like literally 1 year. It's just over a year since I've been sort of pushing my music on Spotify. It was kind of, and it's in some ways as a result of COVID because, prior to that as an artist, more of my focus was on, you're a musician, you're singing, you're writing songs, you're practicing, and then sort of hustling for gigs, right? Like that's where the main money comes in. And there was a time when sort of like even I was selling quite a bit of CDs at gigs. And so that was the focus. But with COVID, obviously, live gigging was not really a thing anymore. And so that it kind of pushed me and provided me the time to focus online for a little bit. And that's when I started working with a manager, sort of assistant manager who's has helped me to sort of strategize and it's like, yeah, you got to get your stuff on Spotify. And so we started to do that. And, really it's all the songs, like the idea is to push all the songs as much as possible on Spotify because there'll be different audiences for each of them, and that is one major way that folks are connecting to music now. And so, yeah, it's a great way to reach new audiences that you can't reach through a live show necessarily. Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Things have definitely changed, since we're going through COVID right now. And again, hopefully knock on wood, we're nearing, hopefully, the end of it.
Yes.
As you were pulling together this project, sorry, I guess first question is, how long was the process to pull together this project? And then was it impacted by COVID in how you released it and helped promote it?
Could you just repeat the very end of the question? Was it impacted by COVID, and then how long?
Well,
and
yeah,
then,
how long was the process to bring this project together? Did you start it, before COVID, during COVID, and then did that have any impact on how you released, when you released, and how you've promoted it today?
Well, I mean, the writing and so on. The songs were written actually over months, maybe over a year before, some before COVID, some maybe during the earlier stages of COVID. But then when I decided to put them together on an album, and I got some support for it through the Canada Council for the Arts, then I sort of wanted to push it really. I sort of gave myself a bit of a time crunch. I wanted to get it out by the spring. And so, yeah, we basically did the arrangements and the recording in like months. And that's pretty fast. Like gently, I know they're faster in history. There are people who've done it faster, like in a week if you're just doing everything live off the floor or whatever. But for a produced album like that, we're layering stuff and sort of producing on the as we go. It involved a pretty intense schedule over the course of a month, and then with mixing, it was an extra week or two, maybe just 6 weeks max, and we finished it. And then, I wanted to get it out by the spring. And I think again that it speaks to, I call the album emergency. There was a pressure in me that was building that this thing needed to be released. And I think it was stuff that had sort of been building as the writing process had happened during that. COVID was kind of like this incubation period, I think, it's not over, but, especially that the first year, 2020, it didn't feel bad at that time. It just was like, okay, this is a chance for me, and I think many people in the world, to sort of turn in to maybe spend more time in nature, spend more time with yourself, and really do some things that you haven't done before, right? So yeah, absolutely, it did impact that, and then the sort of urgency to get it out. That was more a personal push around. Again, I called it emergency, a need, and that speaks to the urgency, but it also speaks to the need to emerge. And for me, that was really critical. It's almost like a kind of coming out of the closet, not as queer, but like as a healer, as a sangoma, as a musician in some ways too, because I really feel that there's been, for myself, sometimes issues of confidence that have held me back, but also the things in the industry that I'm trying to speak to more, where I think, to be honest, if you look at the landscape in the industry right now, for example, I look at the top 10 record labels in Toronto, and only 10% of their roster are people of color. And that's in a city that's more than 50% visible minority, right? And so, for me, it's really facing some of these barriers that have been placed as a woman, as a person of color, as a queer person, and starting to sort of come out in terms of naming these things more, and trying to be less afraid around pushing back. It's a bit of a war cry, like Mother's Home. It's a bit of a war cry in terms of just coming out in terms of who I am. I'm a healer, and this is our battle. Our battle. This is about our survival. Just being able to speak our truth honestly and openly. So I hope that you probably got more of an answer than you even expected there.
Yeah. No, appreciate it.
The song "Better Day," I think I think it's the last song or second last song on off of the album Emergency. Tell us about that song, the inspiration behind it, and sort of what it means to you.
Yeah. Well, that song was written literally in the wake of the George Floyd murder and the uprising. And it's like that, the first question you asked, right? In terms of the connection between the social organizing and music, it was a moment where, I think a lot of us were like, okay, what does one do? I did go to the one rally that was here, but there was a moment, a historical moment where energy was needed, and where we were all feeling something really impactful in terms of both the pain of seeing the murder and mostly seeing it in context of all the murders, the police brutality and all the oppression that's happened over the years. And so, yeah, just very much raw pain, but at the same time, being ready, being inspired to do something, because you see that there's this energy building. It's like, okay, this is a moment to, where we can really shift the balance, and we've always been pushing, we've always been fighting. It's not like this, it just started then. Absolutely not. But there was something again, and COVID played a role where there was a certain amount of a breath that people had time where they were like, we're gonna use this time to push for something better. And so, yeah, Better Day was my answer to that. It was sort of a solve in terms of healing for myself and offering that to other people. But also, again, there's if you listen to the lyrics, there's some sort of I don't want to say hard lyrics, but they're lyrics that talk about needing to pick up stones to protect the ones we love. Like, it's not just all like, oh, sweet, let's kumbaya and hold hands. Like, it was drawing people's attention to the fact that we've been pushed to the point where we actually have to fight. We have to fight just to live, and that's not right. Nobody wants to do that, but that's a reality. And we all want peace, but we, more than that, we need to live, right? We need to stay alive. So, yeah, that was what Better Day was speaking to and speaking from. I hope that answers it.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. So I want to sort of take a swerve here. Talk about one of these community initiatives that you're running. You're raising funds, or you're planning some sort of a village.
Yes.
Tell us about this. What's happening? What are you doing?
So I've always been involved in community projects, as I mentioned, since university onward. Actually, even before that. But this particular project is called the Sankofa Maroon Village. The parent organization is called Moyowa Africa. And that organization has been doing, led by myself, and we've been doing cultural education programming for folks of African descent for over 10 years in Toronto. Then at about 5 years ago, we shifted our energies, or actually it was me, because by that point, some of our activities had kind of tapered off, and it was we went on a little hiatus. And then when I started things up again, we shifted to a focus to doing programming out of the city because of a need for seeing and feeling a need for people of African descent to have access to healing through connection to nature, and not just connection to nature, but cultural programming that's happening in that context, So and again, the integration of those things, because our traditions, just like indigenous traditions from this part of the world, our traditions are also indigenous traditions from somewhere else, and they connect us to land, to elements of nature. And so ran out of a space called Adinkra Farm, which is outside of Barrie. And then we did that for several years and kind of built up a little bit of momentum. And then this year we got our own space, which is 2 hours northwest of Toronto in the Collingwood, just north of Collingwood. And we're using that space to create an intentional community. The first, as far as we know, the first African-centered intentional community north of the U.S.-Canada border.
Wow.
And we're working to, one of our part of our mandate also is to connect with local indigenous people as well. Yes. And really just to provide a space for African descended people to come out and farm, grow their own food, to connect to each other as community, to connect to land. And then we provide cultural programming there as well. And there are opportunities for folks to sort of either live there or sort of have it as a retreat, like a timeshare. So very early stages now, but we're kind of growing our membership and building partnerships with different Toronto-based organizations. And it's really exciting. Yeah. And I'm a part-time organic gardener, although I'm not, that's not my expertise. But again, it's kind of, I think it's an important basic skill. And that's one of the things that I've, really wanted for my son, for example, to learn to grow his own food and stuff. I think it's important. So yeah.
That's great. I noticed that along with the fundraising, I thought was interesting was the memberships that were available. So, different levels of memberships that allowed you different access in terms of would it be the number of nights that you could stay there? I think the middle one was like 180 days or nights at the facility.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're kind of using like almost like a gym membership kind of idea where folks, it's community supported. So they're paying and then sharing access to the space, and then we do want to have we're working towards getting funding so that some memberships can be fully subsidized, so that, because the point is really, we don't want there to be barriers to access for any of our community members. And so even now, even without funding, we're open to barter, and we're really there to sort of work for people. Even, folks don't have cars, we will help organize carpooling and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the model we're using, and so far it seems to be working well. And I think we'll build on it as we go. But I think it forms a good framework for a way to sort of be community supported, but also allow folks the level of involvement that suits them individually.
Yeah,
awesome.
Fantastic initiative.
Amai, there's a segment that we have on the show called Lost Venues. Our question to you is, throughout the years where you've been gigging and playing, live shows, obviously, maybe not recently, but is there a venue, whether it's locally or internationally, that you've played at, that you have great memories of, that just happens to not exist anymore?
Yes, there is. The first one that came to mind, I think there's probably more than one, but first one that I thought of was Train Studio, which used to be there on Bathurst Street, north of Bloor, and it was run by Frank Francis. And yeah, it was just a really important sort of cornerstone of the community, I think, as for people of African descent, but for everybody who loved jazz, and it was just an awesome place to sort of appreciate particularly Black music. But yeah, just it was a really cool spot, and I remember playing a gig there. There was actually like a CBC Black History Month show that we did there, which was that was a pretty exciting and nerve-wracking event, because it was for CBC and like live to air. I think for the national program. So that was very exciting, and I remember it fondly. And Frank's still doing his thing, and hopefully there'll be something like that again soon.
That's awesome.
Train, yeah, I've never heard of that. Okay, interesting. Greg.
Cream.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good.
Sorry, Greg didn't show up to rehearsal yesterday, so he's
all good.
He's a little off. I gave him the whole summer off. He's asking for more time off.
Yeah. So I know you're going to share with us, or you're going to play a song for us today, and just wanted to know if you could give a little sort of background to what the song is, and a background to the song and why it's important to you.
Yes, I'm gonna play from Oshun, which is, again, sort of following on the trajectory of what we've spoken of today. It's a song that is rooted in my practice and my work as a Sangoma, as working in African spiritual traditions. Although, again, one of the complex things is that, for many of us, we have multiple lineages. Those of us who are, descendants who are, our ancestors came through the slave trade. So, Sangoma is a Southern African word, but Oshun is actually a deity in the West African tradition, the Yoruba tradition. And she is a deity of a goddess of what we call sweet water. So all fresh waters, lakes, rivers, streams, and her main things in life. She's also very fierce. She's a warrior as well. And she she's she's one you go to for wealth and money, for help with, as a woman, for help with women's issues and that kind of thing. So and then for her praying for the health of our waters. So yeah, the song is sort of a fun, like fun to sing, and so again, it important and sort of fierce moment where I get to be more open about and more confident in speaking of African traditions. So yeah, I'm really excited to share that for you guys, and hope you enjoy it.
I pray for love. I pray for beauty, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. We pray for money, we pray for sweetness, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. I pray for love, I pray for beauty, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. We pray for money, we pray for sweetness, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. Just like the sun shining on the lake, that your kisses will touch us every day. And just like the rain falling from the sky, that your blessings will wash through our life. Oh Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. Oh Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. Patepa, I pray for love, I pray for beauty, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. We pray for money, we pray for sweetness, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. Just like the vulture up in the sky, that we eat death and turn it into life. And just like the pumpkin growing on the vine, that your bounty will fill our life. Oh Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. Oh Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. We pray for money, we pray for sweetness, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. Just like the river flowing to the sea, that one day we shall be free. And just like the spring flowing from the earth, there to joy we shall give birth. Oh Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. Yebere Oshun, oh Yebere Oshun, 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 oh Yebere. I pray for love, I pray for beauty, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun. We pray for money, we pray for sweetness, Yebere Oshun, Yebere Oshun.
Awesome. Thanks, Amai. That was a great song.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you. So one of the questions
I just realized two things that I overlooked. So I was saying two things I overlooked before. I'm sorry about my phone, and also now the light is fading terribly. I'm getting more and more in darkness. I hope. Do you think that's okay still?
That's fine.
It's nature, right?
It's fine. It's fine. I got to be honest with you. This has happened a few times when we've interviewed people, And
Okay.
Kareem just gets really wigged out between day and night because he doesn't quite understand it. If you go back and listen to our interview with Justine Giles, like there's that, and then there was I don't know, can't remember.
Vin Rock.
Strickland, Vin Rock. Yeah. Kareem doesn't do well. He doesn't quite understand day and night yet, so we're working on that with him. But we'll get him there.
I'm from Scarborough. Our schools taught us different.
I should have just turned on the light. I'm sorry, but then I thought it would be awkward in the middle of the interview to get up and turn it on.
All good. It's all good. So one of the questions that we like to ask our guests before we wrap it up is, what's in your earbuds lately? What are you listening to that people should be checking out?
Oh, well, I'm listening to a lot of things. One thing I will say, if you want to know what I'm listening to on a continuous basis, you can check out this playlist I have called Afro Soul, Move, Dance, Heal, I think is the full name on Spotify. But at the top of that right now, there's an artist named Isult, who's, she has this song with piano and voice that's just like, it's one of those songs that I can't stop listening to. I just keep playing it on repeat. It just like gets me every time. There's another artist named Pongo, who's also another African artist. Who else? Santa Gold. That'll be my third name. I really enjoy a lot of Santa Gold tunes. Sometimes it gets me ready to do my work.
Awesome. What's the name of that playlist again?
It's called Afro Soul, Move, Dance, Heal. Afro Soul,
Move, Dance, Heal. We'll check it out on Spotify. Amai, thank you so much for being our guest today. If people want to listen to your music, buy your album, find out more about you and what you and the band are up to, where can they go?
Spotify is a great place to listen to the music. We have several of our songs also have YouTube videos. So that's another place. Mm-hmm. And for sure, we're also on social media at Amai Kuda et Les Bois on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and now venturing into TikTok a little bit. And yeah, so definitely we get messages from people there, direct messages, and it's really nice to connect with people that way, you know, like we're still accessible. so it's fun to get messages from folks and hear what they think and feel about the music. So please do reach out.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And all the best with the music.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.